A few years ago, when I was proclaiming this gospel passage, the acclamation at the end was not the gospel of Christ, but the good news of salvation. Well, after all the talk of dismembering in Gehenna, I was not so convinced that this was the good news of salvation. And today I am choosing to focus on the first part of the gospel and how it ties in with the reading from the book of Numbers. Moses and the elders are gathered, and God chooses to bestow some of God's spirit that was on Moses to the 70 elders. Now, 2 of the elders were not in the gathering, and they also received the spirit, and they began to prophesy in the camp. A well-meaning aide to Moses urges Moses to stop them. Moses' reply is stern and strong. Would that all God's people were prophets. Would that God might bestow the Spirit on them all. I see 2 important points here. When one receives the Spirit, one must do something with it, as Eldad and Medad did by prophesying in the camp. And secondly, God's Spirit has no limits. There is plenty to go around. God showers us with abundance. God's Spirit is free to rest on anyone. And this abundance is cause for celebration, not resentment. We see exactly the same scene depicted again in the gospel reading. A well-meaning John has tried to stop someone from expelling demons in Jesus' name because this exorcist is not part of our group. John almost brags to Jesus about trying to stop the exorcist, expecting approval and praise. Instead, Jesus rebukes him and his attitude of trying to exclude anyone who is encroaching on our turf. This desire to exclude demonstrates that the disciples do not fully understand the ministry of Jesus. This stranger understands it better than Jesus' own disciples. This stranger understands that Jesus wants us what Jesus wants us all to do. The power of God is available to this unknown exorcist who is acting in faith. With Jesus, it is not a matter of who's in and who's out. Judgment does not depend on some badge of membership, even if the badge is follower of Jesus. The standard is right action, acts of mercy and love. We cannot gatekeep the Spirit and its call to action in God's name. I wonder if today the institutional church understands this mission of Jesus. Jesus welcomes all to his ministry. Jesus refers to those who perform mighty deeds in his name. And he also praises anyone who simply just gives another a drink of water. In desert countries, the simple act of giving a cup of water to drink is a symbol of welcome and inclusion. Jesus recognizes the goodness in our actions, whether they are mighty or modest. I see 2 important points here as well. We cannot decide who should receive God's Spirit. God's Spirit is not limited to the in crowd or people of a particular gender or life situation. And secondly, even our modest deeds are mighty in God's eyes. Any effort to bring God's love to others is significant. Moses prayed that all God's people would be prophets. Well, we are. When we were baptized into Christ. We were baptized like Jesus as priest, prophet, and king. May we be open enough to receive the fullness of God's Spirit and to do something. to do something to bring God's mighty love into our own modest part of the world.